The quiet human looked like the wrong answer to an empire's oldest question. And that was why Princess Alira chose him in the Hall of Seven Suns. Every noble house of Thalanor gathered to watch the shield choosing. The rite where a royal heir selected the one living soul who would stand between her and every blade. Poison, oath trap, blood challenge, and assassin until moonrise. A princess was meant to choose a giant from House Var, a blade saint from the Crimson Monasteries, a star knight in ancestral armor. Someone whose name could make traitors hesitate instead. Alira lifted her trembling hand past jeweled generals, roaring duelists Lord Varan with his golden war mask, and pointed at the human near the servant doors. He wore a plain black coat, a sealed sidearm, mud on his boots, gray at his temples, and a calm face carved by weather. His name was Jonas Hale, Terran Embassy Security Observer, and until that moment the court had mistaken him for hired furniture. Alira said, "I choose the quiet human as my shield." The laughter began in the western balcony, where young nobles always laughed first because they had inherited courage from portraits. Then it rolled through the hall in glittering waves. Lord Varan laughed loudest, because he had expected her to choose him and place her life under his control before the crown touched her head. He was beautiful in the old imperial way. Violet and gold for honor blades at his hips. Enough private soldiers in the capital to call ambition patriotism? Jonas did not react. He only looked at Alira, and in his stillness, she saw why she had chosen him. The night before, during the funeral rites for her murdered father, every lord promised loyalty while watching which doors stayed unguarded. Every general demanded authority over shields before asking whether royal children were safe. Only the human had noticed a kitchen boy carrying water through armored nobles. Only the human had stepped aside, taken the heavy bucket, and carried it to the infirmary. When assassins poisoned the lower wells that same night, Jonas had already rerouted servants to sealed cisterns because he had asked where water came from. The court saw a quiet man. Alira saw the only person in the palace who looked down before looking up. That was the first time the Empire mistook humility for weakness, and it would not be the last before sunset. Lord Varan descended the ivory steps, still smiling, "Princess, grief has made your choice sentimental. The shield rite is not charity for lonely offworlders. A human cannot hold Thalanor's oath storm, answer a blade challenge, or carry royal blood." Jonas looked at him mildly. "I was not asked to carry her blood, only keep it inside her." Gasps snapped across the court. Alira almost laughed. Varan's smile thinned. "Tell us, Earthman. How many crowns have you guarded?" "None," Jonas said. "How many royal wars have you won?" "None alone." "How many duels have you survived in Crystal Law?" "I try not to call murder beautiful names," the nobles hissed. But Alira heard the answer beneath the answer. Jonas was not intimidated by ritual because he measured threats by what they did to bodies, not what songs had named them. The high priest raised the oath chalice. Once chosen, the shield must accept, or the princess stands unguarded. "Human Jonas Hale, do you accept death until moonrise?" Jonas glanced at Alira. "Are civilians included?" The priest blinked. "The right protects the princess." Jonas shook his head once. "Then your right is inefficient." Alira stood. "By my authority as last living heir of the Sun Throne, I extend my shield to every unarmed soul within the palace and city gates until moonrise. Let it be recorded." The laughter faded, not into respect, not yet, but into the confused silence of people hearing a locked door open somewhere in tradition. The oath chalice brightened, accepting the changed words because old magic often understood justice faster than old men. The priest hesitated, then offered the cup to Jonas. The human took it, examined the luminous wine, and asked, "Poison scan." The court erupted again. Lord Varan raised his hands as if to soothe insulted dignity. "Is Earth so cowardly that even sacred wine frightens it?" Jonas said, "Earth has sacred things too. Most of them still get tested." Alira looked at Commander Sereth, captain of the palace guard. The commander flushed and scanned the cup, his face drained of color. "There is blackthorn venom in the rim." The hall froze. The priest almost dropped the chalice. Lord Varen stopped smiling for exactly 1 heartbeat. Jonas took a white cloth from his coat, wrapped the cup carefully, and placed it on the floor. "First attempt before oath completion," he said quietly, sloppy. Meant to blame nerves or human biology, he looked at Alira. "We should move you away from reflective surfaces." That was not a request. Commander Sereth bristled. "This palace has held rulers since before humanity made fire." Jonas answered, "Then it has had a long time to collect blind spots." Alira descended from the throne dais and stood beside him. "Show me, shield." The word sounded strange in her mouth, and stranger still when the human bowed only with his head. Not servile, not arrogant, merely acknowledging work, by noon. Every noble knew the quiet human had insulted the hall, exposed poison, and dragged the princess through servant corridors instead of golden arches. Jonas asked for maps and received ceremonial artwork. So he asked cleaners, cooks, furnace keepers, laundry runners, and stable mechanics. And within an hour, he knew the palace better than the council that claimed to own it. He spoke to everyone the same way. Princess, maid wounded guard, prisoner hauling coal, old woman scrubbing blood from marble. And Alira watched frightened people straighten because the human's attention told them they mattered. Lord Varan sent 2 duelists to shame him at the fountain court, both armored, both dramatic, both eager. Jonas listened to their speeches, shot the fountain valve, let water flood the polished marble, and watched both champions charge, slip, collide, and ring their helmets together like bells. Then he stepped between them, disarmed one with a boot, stunned the other with the flat of a borrowed blade, and said duels should have handrails by the second hour. The nobles stopped calling him beggar and started calling him trickster, which was closer to fear but still not wisdom. Varen appeared during the midday petitions and offered Alira his blade, his 20,000 soldiers, and his name in marriage. Alira asked Jonas under her breath how many soldiers he had. He said, "In this room, 5 who will fight, 12 who will run, 9 who might switch sides if fed. 100 civilians who should not be here." "And me?" she whispered. "That is not enough," he said. "Enough is not found, princess. It is built." That sentence stayed with her longer than any vow of the old kings. Alira lifted her chin. "Lord Varen, I thank you for proving why I did not choose you." The hall went cold. Varen's eyes became narrow slits of violet fire. The princess continued, "A shield stands between danger and the helpless, not between the crown and its freedom. Jonas Hale remains my shield. My answer is sealed." Varan bowed with perfect grace. Then may he be enough when the Empire asks harder questions at that moment. The petition doors burst open, and the harder question arrived screaming. Refugees from the eastern quarter flooded the marble floor. Smoke in their hair, children wrapped in market cloth, old men bleeding from glass cuts, mothers carrying infants whose skin had turned gray from dust. Palace guards tried to hold them back because protocol said the petition line could not exceed 30 bodies. Jonas was already moving. "Open the side doors," he ordered. "Clear the statues, water on the left. Wounded on the right, no family separation. Mark anyone with blue lips for lung wash." Commander Sereth stared. "The petition hall is not a clinic." Jonas snapped, "It is now, Alira," repeated the order, louder, and the hall transformed under human arithmetic. Sill banners became bandages. Banquet tables became triage beds. Nobles who resisted were assigned tasks in front of witnesses and shamed into usefulness. Varan watched with a calculating face because he understood the danger before most. The quiet human was not making Alira look weak. He was making her look necessary. The refugees brought news, not rumor, not court-filtered reports, but smoke-covered truth from the street. The eastern grain towers had exploded. Not from enemy ships, but from sabotage inside the capital. City wells were being poisoned, bridge gates were closing against common districts, and soldiers wearing House Varen colors were directing people toward the Great Plaza. Supposedly for protection, Jonas asked 3 questions and became very still. How many in the plaza? What exits remain open? Which towers overlook it? The answers came broken. Tens of thousands, North Gate sealed. South Bridge crowded, old signal towers still active. Jonas turned to Alira. They are herding civilians into a killing bowl. Varen's voice floated from behind them, or gathering them for orderly protection. Human fear makes ugly guesses. Jonas did not look at him, Princess. Someone means to strike the plaza, then blame the chaos on your failure, and offer military rule by nightfall? Alira's hands went cold. Lord Varen placed one hand over his heart. Such accusations require proof, Jonas pointed to the refugees. There is your proof. Breathing. Varen smiled. Breathing is not evidence in court. One child began coughing blood onto the marble, and Alira felt something inside her turn from fear to iron. Then we will move the court to the evidence, she said, Commander Sarith. Assemble loyal guards. Open the lower armory. Broadcast emergency shelter routes. Varen stepped forward, Princess. The shield, right, forbids the heir from leaving palace grounds before moonrise. The high priest began to nod, relieved to have law to hide behind. Alira looked at Jonas. He shrugged. Does the law define palace grounds? The priest blinked. The royal city is the palace of the people, Alira said, and the oath chalice, still lying wrapped on the floor, flashed once in agreement. That was when the old empire discovered its own laws could be turned toward mercy like a blade toward sunlight. They left through the fish market tunnel, which horrified the nobles more than the assassins had. Alira in a plain cloak over royal armor, Jonas beside her. Commander Sarith, with 30 palace guards, 6 healers, 3 terrified scribes, 40 volunteers from the kitchens, in a growing river of civilians who had heard the princess was walking below the city instead of hiding above it. The tunnel smelled of brine, smoke, and fear, exactly as Jonas had predicted. He assigned nobles to carry lanterns not because lanterns were hard, but because it is difficult to conspire elegantly while holding light for old women. Alira watched him turn useless people useful with almost insulting ease. And the more she watched, the more she understood Earth. Not as the backward mud world her tutors had described, but as a people who had survived by refusing to let pride outrank function. At the first junction, a wounded rebel messenger stumbled into their path, wearing the red scarf of the Free Foundries, the faction accused of killing her father. Sarith raised his blade. Jonas stepped in front. The messenger collapsed, whispering, "Not us, not us." Varen opened the gate. The commander's blade trembled. Alira knelt beside the messenger despite protests. The young woman had a shard of military code glass embedded in her chest. Jonas removed it, scanned it with a Terran wrist slate, and showed Alira the seal. House Varen Command Authority. Alira looked at the dying messenger. "Why? Warn me." The woman smiled through blood. "Because my little brother is in the plaza. Your Highness, and lies do not matter if children die." She died holding Alira's wrist. Jonas covered the messenger's face with his own scarf. One quiet motion, no speech, no ceremony. More reverent than the entire funeral that had filled the palace with perfume the night before, Alira whispered. "My father was not killed by rebels." "No," Jonas said. "I think he was killed by someone who needed you afraid of them." She looked down the tunnel, where civilians waited for orders from a princess who had spent her life above them. "What if I cannot hold them?" Jonas answered. "Do not hold them. Move with them." They emerged near the great plaza at late afternoon, under a sky bruised purple by smoke, and the scale of the trap opened before them. Tens of thousands packed between monument walls. Families pressed so tightly that children were held above shoulders to breathe. Soldiers in Varen colors blocked the exits. Signal towers hummed with weapon capacitors disguised as crowd control lights, and above the old imperial statue. Lord Verone's banners began unfurling. Alira's breath caught. He was going to strike the crowd from the towers. Blame rebels, declare the princess incapable, and step into emergency regency over a grieving empire. Jonas scanned the rooftops, jaw tight. "We have less than 10 minutes. Sarith said, "We have 30 guards. They have towers, troops." "And the crowd?" Jonas shook his head. We have the crowd too if we stop treating them like terrain. Princess, can your voice reach the plaza? Alira looked at the old statue, its broadcast crown half broken. The royal channel can if I climb there. Sareth said, impossible. Jonas said, hard, not impossible, different category. The climb up the imperial statue became the moment every hidden eye in the city turned toward the princess and her shield. Varen's soldiers saw her first and tried to fire. But Jonas had already sent kitchen volunteers through drainage grates with pots of boiling dye. Blue steam erupted around the soldiers, blinding target crystals. Sareth and his guards struck from the crowd side. Not to win a battle, but to open breaths of space. Alira climbed the statue's inner maintenance ladder, hands slipping on rust, cloak tearing. Jonas below her with one shoulder braced against the hatch as shots rang off metal. He did not hurry her with insults or soft lies. Only with clear steps, left hand higher, breathe twice. Do not look down until down needs you, halfway up. A Varen blade guard dropped through the maintenance shaft above them. Alira froze. Jonas drew his sealed sidearm, broke the diplomatic wax with his thumb, and fired once. The sound flat and final in the metal throat of the statue. The guard fell past them into darkness. Alira stared. Your weapon was sealed. Yes. Using it violates embassy law. Yes. Will Earth punish you? Probably. Why did you? He looked up at her. Because you were in the way of a bullet? Climb, she climbed. And something in her heart moved with every rung. Not romance, not yet, something more dangerous. Trust. On the crown platform, wind tore smoke across her face. The plaza below was a living sea of terror. Varen's tower lights, turning from amber to red. Jonas slammed his Terran slate into the old broadcast panel. Sparks snapping. This system is antique, he muttered. It was built 5,000 years ago, Alira said. So was the concept of hitting things until they work. The panel coughed alive. He grabbed her arm before she spoke. Truth first, orders second, hope third. She nodded. Then opened the royal channel, people of Thalanor. This is Alira Vare, daughter of the murdered emperor, heir by blood. But today, I speak by witness. The eastern towers are armed against you. House Varon has sealed your exits. The rebels did not kill my father. The Free Foundries warned us. I have been blind, and you have paid for that blindness. I will not ask you to kneel. I ask you to move north. Families sit low. South line turn sideways, past the children over shoulders, toward the blue smoke. Palace guards are opening drains. Foundry workers cut the gate chains. Healers follow the white cloths. Move together. Do not surge. Do not trample. Jonas stood behind her, feeding instructions from what his eyes saw. And her voice carried them not as royal poetry, but as survival made audible. Then the towers fired, not into the center, because Jonas had predicted Varon would first test the crowd edge. 3 beams lanced down at the southern wall, but the people were already moving sideways. The blast tore monument stone instead of bodies, shards flying, screams rising, panic trying to become a stampede. Alira's voice cracked. But Jonas gripped the broadcast rail and said, Again, princess, they need you again. She kept speaking. Not gracefully, not perfectly, but continuously. Sareth's guards cut the first exit. Foundry rebels cut the second. Servants opened drainage doors from beneath, and the crowd began to flow. Not safe, not calm, but alive. Varen appeared on the western tower balcony, war masks shining. Broadcasting over a private channel, citizens, your princess has brought rebel violence into your sanctuary. Stay where you are. Await my protection. Jonas switched the channel and answered before Alira could stop him. This is Jonas Hale of Earth. Your protection just shot at children. Move. The simplicity of it shattered Varen's grand language. People moved faster. Varen snarled and sent his elite sky lancers toward the statue. Alira saw them diving through smoke, armored wings folded, spears ready to impale the broadcast crown. Jonas looked at her. Keep talking. He stepped onto the outer ledge. Wind whipping his coat, sidearm empty. Borrowed blade in hand, Alira shouted, "Jonas," he said. "Shield, stand in front." Then the first lancer hit. Asterisk, that was when Thalinar learned that a quiet human can be louder than a war horn without raising his voice. Jonas fought on the statue's crown with the whole city watching. He was not elegant like Varen's duelists. No spinning flourishes, no jeweled footwork. No poses for painters. He moved like gravity had confessed all its secrets to him. A step aside, a hand on a wing joint, a blade redirected into stone, an elbow into a breathing slit, a kick that sent one lancer screaming into a banner mast. He used the broken broadcast spikes. The wind, the slick smoke, even Alira's discarded cloak, which he threw across a helm at the exact moment a spear thrust came blind. Every second he bought, another 100 civilians escaped the plaza. Every cut he took, another child reached an open drain. He did not smile, did not boast, did not look to see who admired him. And that terrified Varen more than pride would have. Because pride can be baited, duty has to be stopped. The last lancer drove a spear through Jonas's side and pinned him briefly against the statue crown. Alira screamed his name into the broadcast. The whole city heard it. Jonas gripped the spear shaft, pulled himself along it toward the lancer instead of away, and head-butted the warrior so hard the helm cracked. He tore free, staggered, and set into the open channel by accident. "Still here, keep moving," that became the heartbeat of the plaza. "Still here, keep moving," sung by strangers, shouted by guards, repeated by children in drains, whispered by old men carrying one another through smoke. At dusk, Varan realized the massacre had failed and chose open war. His private soldiers dropped their false rescue banners and fired on palace guards. Artillery hidden in grain wagons rolled into market streets. The western gate opened to admit mercenary walkers, and in the sky above the capital, 3 cruisers loyal to Varan turned their guns toward the palace spires. The empire was splitting in real time. House by house, street by street, lie by lie. Alira and Jonas descended the statue through smoke and blood, finding Sareth alive, wounded, and grinning like a madman because the plaza was nearly empty. Varen's voice filled the city from the western tower. Aliraver has broken the shield right, armed rebels, endangered civilians, and submitted Thalinor to human manipulation. By authority of emergency defense, I claim regency. Surrender the princess and the off-order, or I will burn the palace districts clean. Alira looked toward the civilians fleeing into shelters, toward the foundry rebels who had saved them, toward palace guards standing shoulder to shoulder with people they had been ordered to fear. Then she looked at Jonas. What now? He pressed a blood-soaked hand to his side. Now we stop playing defense. She stared. We have no army. He pointed around them. You have city workers who know tunnels, rebels who know factories, guards who know palace codes, refugees who know which roads are blocked, priests with public trust, smugglers with boats, children who know drainage paths, and nobles who owe you shame. That is an army if you stop waiting for it to wear matching clothes. The command center they built was not in the palace. It was in the central bathhouse because the walls were thick. The water channels reached every district, and nobody important had considered it strategic. Jonas moved the war map there, then improved it with reports from street vendors, sewer engineers, laundrywomen, priests, smugglers, and frightened children who knew drainage paths better than generals knew avenues. Alira watched an empire reorganize itself around competence. Nobles carrying lanterns, servants guiding soldiers, foundry rebels welding market rails into traps, palace scribes copying orders by hand, healers given authority over captains, and disgraced lords funding medical wagons because she made the donations public. Jonas did not command like a conqueror. He asked names, found skills, assigned tasks, and moved on by full dark. Varen's beautiful army advanced into a city that had stopped behaving like a prize and started behaving like a living creature with teeth. Walkers fell through hollowed roads. Canal surges drowned engines. Reflective banners confused targeting optics. Temple bells bounced false command signals, and bakery chimneys spat foundry rockets. Word spread through smoke, the princess is in the city. The human shield is still standing, still here, keep moving. And then came the law nobody expected to matter near the 9th bell. As Varen's western forces stalled and his cruisers burned fuel in confusion, the high priest arrived at the bathhouse with torn robes and terrified acolytes carrying the oath chalice. "Princess," he said, "the rite has changed." Alira looked up from the map. "Everything has changed." "Be specific." The priest swallowed the old language in the chalice. "When you extended the shield to all unarmed souls, it accepted. The shield-bearer is no longer bound only to your body. He is bound to the city if he dies before moonrise. The oath claims witness. If he lives and the city survives, the people may invoke the first crown." Sareth frowned. "That law is myth." Jonas, pale from blood loss, did not look up. "I dislike myths that arrive during artillery," the priest continued, "before emperors ruled by blood. Thalanor named kings by shield acclaim. Not rulers above the crown, but protectors beside it. A king was the one the people called when walls failed. The title vanished when dynasties grew comfortable." Alira turned slowly toward Jonas. "By nightfall, if the people call him king." "What happens?" the priest whispered. "The old houses must answer his emergency commands until dawn. Even above lords, even above generals, Varan's claim to regency would break." Jonas finally looked up. "No," Alira said. "Jonas." He shook his head. "Absolutely not. I am not becoming alien royalty because your cup misunderstood mission creep." The priest blinked at mission creep. Alira almost smiled despite everything. Then Varen's next broadcast thundered over the city. "Surrender now, or I execute the captured children of the Eastern Plaza." All humor died. The image appeared on the bathhouse wall. Transmitted from the old lunar theater, dozens of children kneeling under guns, including the boy who had carried the red scarf message. Varen stood behind them without his mask now. Beautiful face naked with rage. "Jonas Hale," he said, "I know you hear me. You have made yourself the symbol of her resistance. Come alone to the theater, Neil, and die publicly. Or the children die in your place." Alira felt the room tilt. Jonas was already checking his weapon. "No," she said. He ignored her. Sareth blocked the door. "Shield, you can barely walk," Jonas answered. "Then I will not waste steps." Alira grabbed his sleeve. "We can plan. We have 3 minutes before he gets nervous enough to prove himself." Jonas said, his eyes softened. "Princess, this is what shields are for." "No," she said. "Shields stand in front. They do not walk away alone." He looked at the map. Theater entrances. Sewer access, roof prop tunnels, old orchestra pit, who knows it? A kitchen volunteer raised her hand. "I cleaned there for 12 years. "Good," Jonas said. "Then nobody goes alone." Alira looked at the priest. If the people call him king, his commands override Varen's troops. Could that make them hesitate? The priest trembled. "If the call is public and witnessed?" "Yes, but it cannot be forced. It must be given by the people." Jonas said, "Do not you dare." Alira opened the city channel anyway. "Not to command, but to confess. People of Thalanor. Lord Varen holds children in the lunar theater and demands the life of Jonas Hale, the human who stood in the plaza. I cannot order your hearts. I cannot name him for you. I can only tell you what I have seen. He carried your water before he guarded my crown. He found poison before pride did. He turned nobles into stretcher-bearers, rebels into rescuers, guards into servants of the living, and fear into roads. He has refused every title. So I will not give him one, but if the old word still means what it once meant. If king means shield of the people, and not owner of the throne, then speak as free citizens, and let the houses hear you." The channel stayed silent for 1 breath, then 2. Jonas stared at her as if betrayed and terrified. Then, from somewhere under the city, a child's voice whispered over an open shelter transmitter. "King." Another voice, older, from the fish market tunnel. "King." Then 100 from the aquifer bunker. "King." Then the plaza survivors. The foundries, the bathhouse wounded. The priests at broken temples, the guards on hospital roofs. The smugglers in canal boats. The nobles washing bandages through clenched teeth. King, 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 not polished. Not unanimous at first, not ceremonial, but rising. Rough, furious, grateful, a whole empire remembering a buried word and throwing it like a spear through the night. That was how Jonas Hale became king of Thalanar, while standing in a bathhouse, bleeding through borrowed armor and saying, "Please stop." Asterisk, the oath chalice ignited with sunrise gold, though night had not ended. Its light went through the water channels, through the old palace stones. Through every soldier, oath brand in the capital, Varen's troops heard the word and felt ancient commands seize their armor, not obedience to a foreigner, but obedience to the law their houses had sworn before comfort taught them loopholes. Some tore off Varan colors, some froze, some opened gates. Some lowered guns from children's heads in sudden horror at what they had almost done. Jonas staggered as if the city itself had placed a hand on his spine. The priest bowed. "King's shield, your command." Jonas closed his eyes, then opened them with a soldier's resignation. All units within theater range. Stand down from civilian targets. Protect children. Detain anyone issuing execution orders. No lethal force unless necessary. Medical teams forward. Princess Alira retains civil authority. Repeat, the crown remains hers. I am temporary. The chalice accepted even that. Perhaps amused, Alira thought, perhaps relieved at the lunar theater. Varen screamed as half his guard stepped away from the children. He killed one loyal soldier with his own blade and dragged the boy from the plaza toward the stage. If the Empire wants a human king, he shouted, I will give it a corpse to crown. Jonas heard through the channel and began walking. Alira walked beside him. This time, he did not tell her to stay back. This time he understood that a shield large enough for a city had room beside it. Asterisk, the rescue of the lunar theater became legend before morning. But legends forget how small the doors were, how badly the stairs smelled of damp costumes, how afraid the children were, how Jonas almost fell twice in the sewer tunnel and only kept moving because Alira put his arm over her shoulder without asking. They entered through the old orchestra pit while kitchen workers cut stage ropes. Foundry rebels jammed the rear doors, palace guards cleared balconies, and Varen's uncertain soldiers stood with weapons pointed at one another. Caught between ambition and oath, Varen held the child at blade point center stage. Moonlight through the broken dome, making him look like the hero he had always imagined himself to be. You, he spat at Jonas, king of rats, king of servants, king of frightened children? Jonas stepped onto the stage, breathing hard. Yes, he said. Varan blinked, robbed of an argument. Jonas continued. Rats, no tunnels. Servants, no doors. Frightened children know who came for them. I can work with that. Varan pressed the blade closer to the boy's throat. Kneel, human, or he dies. Jonas lowered his weapon. Illyra's heart stopped. He knelt, slowly, painfully, before Varen, and the theater gasped. The usurper smiled, finally satisfied. You see, even kings kneel. Jonas looked at the child. Not at Varan, yes, he said, when someone small needs the blade angled down. The boy bit Varen's wrist, not hard enough to win. Just hard enough to change the angle. Jonas moved from his knees like a trap released, one hand catching the blade. The other slamming into Varan's throat, Alira threw her dagger. Pinning Varen's sleeve to the stage curtain, Seraph tackled the child away. And the old stage ropes dropped because kitchen workers had cut the counterweights exactly as Jonas ordered. Sandbags crashed around Varen, boxing him in. He tore free with monstrous strength, armor flaring, and came at Jonas with all the fury of a man who had been denied ownership of history. Their final fight was not royal. Not beautiful. No choir would have recognized it. Varan was stronger, faster, bred for war in high-gravity arenas. Jonas was injured older, running on blood loss and stubbornness. But Jonas fought like a human who had learned that winning and surviving were different arts. He gave ground toward the orchestra pit. Let Varan overextend, used broken stage lights to blind him. Used applause rails to trip him. Used his own weakness as bait. Twice Varan struck where Jonas had seemed to stumble and found empty air. Alira tried to intervene. But Jonas shouted, Children! She turned. saw a burning curtain falling toward the hostages, and chose, as he would have chosen, not the duel, the helpless. She and Sareth dragged the children clear as Jonas took Varen's blade through the shoulder and locked both arms around him at the edge of the pit. Varan hissed. "You cannot rule them, human," Jonas said. "I do not want to. Then why fight?" "Because you do." Jonas drove his forehead into Voran's face, twisted, and both men crashed into the orchestra pit below. Instruments exploded under them. Old drums bursting, strings screaming, dust rising like gray ghosts. Alira reached the edge and saw Varen impaled through his armor on the broken conductor's crystal. Alive but pinned, Jonas lying beside him, not moving. For one terrible second, the theater held only the sound of children crying. Then Jonas coughed and whispered that was not stairs. Alira laughed through a sob and climbed down so fast she tore both palms open. Varen, bleeding and broken, tried to speak. "Still reaching for command?" "The houses will never follow a human." Alira knelt beside him. "The houses may choose their shame tomorrow." Tonight the people already chose. Varen looked beyond her, to where his own former soldiers were helping children from the stage, where kitchen workers carried guard weapons, where rebels and palace healers worked side by side, where nobles held lanterns for servants. He saw the empire he wanted to own becoming something he could not understand. And that was a cleaner defeat than death. Jonas opened one eye. Princess Alira leaned close. "Yes," he said. "Please tell the priest I abdicate." She shook her head. "You cannot abdicate before dawn." "Ancient law," he groaned. "I hate politics," she whispered. Then survive dawn and complain officially. Moonrise came with Varen chained. The children safe, the cruisers surrendered, and the capital still burning in places but alive. The shield rite should have ended in the Hall of Seven Suns with incense, songs, and nobles pretending they had always believed in justice. Instead, it ended in the Great Plaza, where the people refused to disperse until they saw the princess and the king they had accidentally made. Jonas had been bandaged, braced, and threatened by healers, then brought out on a wheeled grain cart because no one could find a royal litter that did not make him swear. Alira stood beside him, cloak torn, crown missing, face streaked with soot, and the oath chalice floated between them. The high priest spoke with a voice that shook across every public channel. "By witness of Moonrise, Princess Alira Vare survived the shield, right? The city survived under expanded oath. The people invoked the first crown. Jonah's Hail of Earth stands named King Shield of Thalanar, until dawn and forever in record." The plaza answered with the word again, King, not as worship, not as surrender, but as thanks sharpened into a title. Jonas leaned toward Alira and muttered, "Your people are very dramatic," she said. "You fought a duel in a theater and fell into an orchestra pit." He considered that fair. Then Alira raised her hand and the crowd quieted. "My father is dead, my house is wounded, my court is guilty of blindness. And I am alive because those below the throne carried the empire when those above it tried to sell it. Tonight, a human taught us an old truth we had buried. A shield is not the wall that hides the ruler. A shield is the promise that power stands in front when danger comes." She turned to Jonas. He looked alarmed, which made half the front row smile. Alira continued, "King Shield, give your command before dawn." The priest held the chalice toward him. Jonas slowly stood despite every healer hissing murder from behind him. He gripped the cart rail, looked across the plaza of refugees. Rebels, nobles, soldiers, servants, children, and smoke. And for once the quiet human had to speak to an empire. He said, "Open the gates, all of them. No district sealed by birth, no cellar closed to wounded, no food held for ceremony while children are hungry. Put engineers above courtiers until water runs clean. Put healers above generals until fever breaks. Put witnesses above pride until the truth about your emperor's murder is known. Try Lord Varen publicly. Try anyone who helped him publicly. Thank the rebels who warned you. Pay the servants who saved you. And never again build a palace that cannot be navigated by the people who clean it. the plaza was silent. Stunned by the plainness, he took a breath, pain flickering across his face. Last command. No statues of me. Alira closed her eyes, already knowing that command would fail. The crowd laughed, not mockery this time. Relief, love, grief, all tangled together. Jonas looked helpless. Alira said softly, "I will negotiate them down to one small plaque." He said, "You are lying." She said, "I am learning politics." Dawn found Jonas alive and furious about it, which the Terran medics took as a good sign. The first Crown Oath released the city, but the name did not vanish. Children chalked King's Shield on tunnel walls, healers wrote it on supply crates. Foundry workers stamped it onto broken gate chains. And palace guards began using "Still Here, Keep Moving" as a watch phrase. Alira was crowned 3 days later in a ceremony stripped of half its jewels and most of its lies. She placed the first crown offering before the families of those killed in the plaza. Not before noble houses. Jonas stood behind her because healers failed to chain him to bed. When the high priest asked whether she would name a consort, commander, regent, or king beside her throne, Alira looked at Jonas, and Jonas shook his head with the desperation of a man facing artillery. She smiled and said, "I name no ruler over my people but law. No partner beside me without free choice. No shield without rest. Jonas Hale is not my possession. Not my ornament, not my proof of strength. He is our witness, our friend." And the quiet human who reminded an empire how to stand years later. When children asked how a human became king of Thalanor for one night, the elders began with the bucket of water. They told how Princess Alira chose the quiet human because he noticed servants before banners, how the court mocked his muddy boots, how he found poison in a sacred cup, opened fish market tunnels, believed a dying rebel, and taught a princess that enough is not found, it is built. They told how Varan tried to make fear into a throne, how the plaza nearly became a grave, how Jonas stood on a statue crowned with blood in his teeth and told the people, "Still here, keep moving." They told how old laws woke when mercy spoke their true name, how Jonas knelt only to save a child, how he defeated a lord who wanted to rule because he himself did not, and how at moonrise, under smoke and broken stars, the Empire called him king while he begged everyone to stop being dramatic. Then they pointed to the great plaque in the plaza, where the words were carved in Terran steel and Thalanor gold. She chose the quiet human as her shield by Nightfall. He had taught an empire that the highest crown is the one carried for others.